I know how you've been breathing deeper lately, trying to hide an exhaustion that doesn't always show on your face, but weighs on your chest as if every day is too long and every night is too short. I've seen the silence you carry while everyone else thinks you're strong. I've heard the prayers you couldn't finish because your voice failed and the tears stayed trapped in the pillow that knows your truth. That is why you didn't end up here by chance, my son, my daughter, my beloved. As you hear these words right now, in this very instant, I'm stepping into the places no one else can reach. I am touching the area of your life you're afraid to face, and I declare this is for you. Do not ignore what comes next, because today I am breaking a cycle of waiting that has been draining your hope. I'm moving something specific in the situation that has been stealing your sleep and tightening your breath. I'm preparing a concrete answer for the thing you thought you'd have to face alone. I know the name of the struggle you tell no one about. I know the guilt you carry, as if it were your own responsibility, and right now I am shifting that weight off your shoulders. I'm placing rest where there was tension, direction where there was confusion, and light where there was a hallway too dark to keep going. Do not treat this moment as a coincidence, because while you listen, I am aligning people, opening a door that seemed sealed shut, and healing a wound you thought was permanent. And if you recognize that this word has reached the exact place that hurts, then comment as an act of faith, declaring, I receive it. Subscribe, leave a like, and share this message with someone you love. And stay until the end. I am still here. I know you've been waking up before the alarm goes off, not because you're rested, but because your mind won't shut down, and your heart insists on revisiting conversations, decisions, and fears you try to hide, even from yourself. I've seen you sitting in the dark of your living room, holding your breath so you won't wake anyone, silently asking where you lost the lightness you once had. I know that feeling of carrying responsibilities that seem too heavy for your strength, as if every family problem chose your shoulders as its home. My son, my daughter, you have been a shelter for everyone, and yet you almost never find a shelter for yourself. You've been the answer when you just needed to be cared for, and this silent overload has started to turn your faith into something fragile. Not because you stopped believing, but because you're too tired to fight. I do not ignore the weight on your soul. I do not overlook the fear that things will never change, and I am not indifferent when you think you have to hold on just a little longer, even though you're at your breaking point. Today, I'm stepping into that exact point of exhaustion, not to demand more from you, but to reveal that what is consuming you wasn't born to destroy you. It was born to be surrendered. You tried to solve it alone. You tried to keep control. You tried to protect everyone around you, but you forgot that you are also someone who needs care. I am diagnosing what you couldn't name. It's not weakness. It's accumulated burnout. It's not a lack of faith. It's an excess of pressure. And now I'm touching that specific area of your life where anxiety has moved in like a permanent guest. And I am beginning to remove layer by layer the tension you've normalized. I promise real rest, not a temporary escape, clear direction, not confusing answers, and an internal reorganization that will give you back the ability to breathe without feeling guilty. What looked like a dead end is starting to open up because I am repositioning circumstances you can't even imagine are moving. The healing I begin today isn't just emotional, it's spiritual, and it prepares you to walk through the coming days with a strength that won't come from effort, but from my presence sustaining your every step. I know there is a question you repeat inside and never speak aloud. How much longer? This prolonged waiting has worn down your hope like water hitting a stone, making you doubt if it's still worth believing that anything can change. I've seen the times you smiled out of politeness while feeling an emptiness inside that's hard to explain, a kind of silence that hurts because no one notices. You've grown used to being strong, to solving things, to giving advice, but you rarely let anyone see your own fragility. My beloved, you weren't created to carry the world alone, and this feeling that everything depends on you has stolen your peace. I know the fear of failing, the guilt of not being able to do more, the internal pressure that is never satisfied, and I am here to confront the lie that says you only have value when you are producing or providing. The diagnosis is clear. You've confused responsibility with an eternal burden and commitment with constant sacrifice. It has started to affect your health, your sleep, your joy. Now, I am revealing something you need to hear. Not everything in your hands is your ultimate mission. I'm starting to redistribute the loads, to adjust the routes, and to close cycles that have already served their purpose. The promise I make today is specific. That situation that seems stuck will receive an unexpected movement, and you will realize you weren't alone for a single second. Relief won't come as a crash, but as a peace that starts quietly and grows until it fills the space where anguish used to live. I am restoring your ability to trust without fearing the future. I am renewing your shaking faith, and I am preparing you to experience an answer that will confirm the wait wasn't a waste. It was preparation. Comfort your heart, because what looked like a delay was alignment, and what looked like abandonment was just a silent process of construction that is now starting to reveal itself before your eyes. I know there are nights when you lie down and your body is exhausted, but your mind insists on running through difficult scenarios, imagining losses, failures, and goodbyes that haven't even happened. This spiritual anxiety has been draining your energy, as if you're always preparing for an invisible battle. I've seen you asking for strength, so you won't crumble in front of those who depend on you, and I know the effort you make to maintain an appearance of stability when, inside, you feel the cold floor of insecurity. My son, my daughter, it is no shame to feel afraid. It is no sin to admit you're tired, and it is no weakness to wish someone would take care of you for a while. What has happened is that you've taken on emotional responsibilities that weren't yours. You've taken on pains that belong to others, and that has created an overload your heart wasn't designed to handle alone. I am revealing that part of your anguish comes from the need to control what only I can transform, and this constant attempt to anticipate the future has stolen the rest of your present. Now I am entering that specific area where worry became a routine, and I am starting to undo the internal knots, bringing clarity where there was confusion and serenity where there was a rush. The promise I make isn't just to solve external circumstances, but to restore your mind, to give you back more peaceful nights of sleep and days where your chest doesn't tighten for no reason. I'm removing the feeling that something bad is always about to happen and replacing it with a solid confidence that I am walking ahead of you. The miracle I begin today involves emotional balance, the healing of repetitive thoughts, and liberation from imaginary scenarios that never came true. Feel the relief starting now, as you realize you don't need to watch over every detail of life for it to continue, because I am sustaining what you thought depended exclusively on you. Prepare yourself to live days where breathing will be lighter and hope will stop being an effort and become real rest within your soul. I know there is an old wound you rarely touch because you've learned to survive by working around it, but it still pulses when certain words are said, when certain faces appear, or when memories cross your mind without warning. I saw the moment you decided not to talk about it anymore, so you wouldn't seem weak. And since then, you've carried that pain like someone keeping a broken object in a drawer, pretending it's not there. My beloved, this wound does not define you, but it has influenced your choices, your fears, and even the way you relate to those you love. The diagnosis I reveal is simple and profound. You have avoided feeling so you wouldn't suffer again, but by avoiding the feeling, you've also blocked parts of your joy. I don't enter your story to expose you. I enter to heal you. Right now, I am touching exactly that sensitive spot you hide even from yourself. The promise I make is to restore what was shaken, to rebuild your confidence and to give back the security that was broken by harsh words, by abandonment, or by disappointments that left too deep a mark. I am removing the root of the guilt you took on without realizing. That feeling that you should have done things differently, spoken differently, been different. Relief begins when you understand that not everything was your responsibility and that part of what happened was out of your control. Today, I'm starting a process of emotional liberation that will allow you to look at the past without feeling that same weight, as if the memory has lost its power to hurt. I am renewing your identity, separating who you are from what happened to you, and this will bring a lightness you haven't felt in years. Comfort your heart, because restoration is not just possible, it has already begun as you listen to these words. What seemed permanent is being transformed right now into a testimony of overcoming and maturity. I know there are decisions you've been putting off because you're afraid of making a mistake, and this indecision has created a different kind of fatigue. A feeling of standing still while time moves on, as if life is waiting for you to choose a path that always seems too risky. I've seen you analyzing scenarios, weighing consequences, trying to predict every detail before taking a step. And this excess of caution was born from the fear of suffering again. My son, my daughter, prudence is wisdom, but paralysis is not protection. I see that you are caught between the desire to move forward and the fear of repeating old pains. The diagnosis is clear. The insecurity isn't in a lack of ability, but in the memory of experiences that shook your confidence. I am revealing that this phase of doubt is not a sign of incapacity. It is a transition point, and I didn't bring you this far to leave you confused. Now I am entering this labyrinth of thoughts and beginning to align your perceptions with the truth of who you are, showing you that there is more preparation in you than you imagine. The promise I make is direction, not just external signs, but an internal conviction that will bring peace even before the circumstances change. Relief will come when you realize you don't need to have all the answers to take the next step. You just need to trust that I am walking beside you. I am opening a specific door that seemed stuck, and you will recognize it when it appears, because a different kind of peace will accompany this opportunity. The healing happening now involves your self-confidence, your ability to decide without constant guilt, and your right to move forward without carrying the past as a sentence. Prepare to experience clarity where there was once fog, because I am leading you into a time where your choices will be made with serenity, not fear. I know you miss something you can't fully explain, a kind of void, even when everything seems fine on the surface, as if there's an internal space waiting to be filled by something daily life can't offer. I've seen you trying to distract yourself, keeping busy with tasks, helping others, keeping the routine going, but still noticing that a part of you is asking for something deeper. My beloved, this longing isn't ingratitude. It's a thirst for meaning, a desire for reconnection. I'm attentive to this silent cry that doesn't always turn into an articulated prayer. The diagnosis I reveal is that your soul has been longing for closeness with me in a way you perhaps haven't prioritized, not out of disinterest, but out of exhaustion. You associated spirituality with effort and obligation, and that caused you to drift away without noticing, believing you didn't have enough energy to get close. Now I am entering this inner gap, not with a demand, but with an invitation. I am starting to reignite a flame that seemed too small. The promise I make is to restore our intimacy, to bring back the feeling of being heard, guided, and sustained in every detail of your life. The relief you seek isn't just in the resolution of external problems, but in the internal certainty that you aren't walking alone. I'm healing the idea that you need to earn my presence, because my love is not a prize, it is a covenant. Today begins a spiritual renewal, that will bring purpose to your days and meaning to your struggles, turning the void into fullness and the distance into a living, constant presence. Take comfort, because what you felt as an absence was, in fact, a call to a greater depth that is now opening up before you. I know part of your exhaustion comes from having been strong for too long, from holding back tears so you wouldn't worry anyone, from swallowing words to keep the peace. This constant posture of resistance has created an internal rigidity that has started to affect even your body. I've seen the physical pains that appeared without a clear explanation, the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the signals your own body sent asking for a break. My son, my daughter, your body has been saying what your mouth kept silent, and I do not ignore those signs. The diagnosis is that you've turned survival into a lifestyle, and living that way for too long carries a high price. Now, I am entering this area where the emotional and physical meet, bringing a restoration that reaches your mind, heart, and body. The promise I make is balance, to give you back the ability to rest without guilt, to say no without feeling like you're failing, and to recognize limits without condemning yourself. Relief begins when you accept that you don't need to prove your strength all the time, that vulnerability doesn't diminish your value. I am releasing over you a sense of care that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on my constant presence. The healing I begin involves habits, thoughts, and postures that will be adjusted gradually, bringing lightness to your daily life. I'm preparing you for a phase where emotional and physical health will walk together, reflecting the peace that is starting to establish itself inside you now. Receive this renewal as confirmation that your story is not marked only by resistance, but by a deep restoration that transforms wear and tear into a testimony of victory. I know that, despite everything you've faced, there is still a spark of hope inside you that refuses to die, even when circumstances try to suffocate it. It is that spark that I am fueling right now. I've seen the times you thought about giving up on your dreams, about settling, about accepting that certain areas of your life would never change, but something inside you always resisted. My beloved, that resistance isn't stubbornness, it's purpose. It's the mark that I am still writing chapters you haven't read yet. The final diagnosis I reveal is that your journey isn't lagging behind. It is being matured. Every pain you faced added depth to your faith and sensitivity to your heart. Now I step in with a clear promise. What seemed stagnant will begin to move in a noticeable way, and you will witness answers appearing where there was once only silence. The relief settling in isn't a passing euphoria. It's a quiet conviction that there is direction and care in every detail. I am restoring your ability to wait without despair, to act without fear, and to trust without reservation. The healing is complete when you realize you haven't been forgotten, that your story matters, and that your efforts weren't invisible. I am preparing you for a harvest time proportional to the perseverance you showed during the hard days. The renewal starting now will manifest in lighter attitudes, more aligned thoughts, and firmer decisions. Comfort your heart, because what you heard today isn't just words. It is real movement in your life. What comes next will be the confirmation that I have always been leading your every step. I know there is a type of loneliness that doesn't depend on the absence of people, but on the absence of understanding. And you felt this even when surrounded by voices and commitments. I saw you participate in conversations while inside you fought silent battles that no one there could imagine. You learned to say everything is fine naturally, even when your heart was too heavy to sustain the phrase. My son, my daughter, this invisible loneliness did not go unnoticed by me, because I know the sound of your silence. The diagnosis is that you've been feeling emotionally displaced, as if you're living on a different frequency than the people around you. This started to create an internal distance. a sense of not belonging that you never admitted out loud. Now I am entering exactly that space where you feel misunderstood, and I am beginning to rebuild your sense of worth. The promise I make is that true connections will emerge, not superficial ones, but ones aligned with your essence and the moment you are living. I am preparing encounters and conversations that will bring identification, support, and real understanding. Relief begins when you realize you weren't born to walk isolated, even if you've crossed certain phases alone. I'm restoring your ability to trust in relationships again without the constant fear of disappointment. Receive this renewal as confirmation that the loneliness that hurt is being transformed into aligned companionship and a presence that builds you up. I know there is a specific worry involving someone you love, and this situation has occupied your thoughts more than you show. I've seen you blame yourself for not being able to solve everything, for not having ready answers or immediate solutions. You feel as if it's your obligation to keep everyone protected, even when your own strength is at its limit. My beloved, this exaggerated responsibility has consumed your peace and stolen your joy. The diagnosis reveals that you've taken on a role that goes beyond what is actually under your control. There are boundaries you cannot cross, and that isn't a failure, it's the human condition. Now I am entering this specific worry and beginning to act where your hands cannot reach. The promise I make is precise intervention, the alignment of circumstances and care over this person who occupies your heart. You will see signs of change that will confirm it doesn't depend only on you. Relief begins when you surrender what you cannot manage and accept that I am leading. I'm bringing balance between love and limits, between care and rest. Trust that what has been taking away your sleep is being handled by me with attention and power. I know there is a financial or professional area that has generated a silent insecurity. I've seen you calculate, reorganize, and try to predict scenarios to avoid loss or embarrassment. There is a quiet fear of instability that you hardly mention, but it weighs on your decisions. My son, my daughter, this constant tension has created a state of alert that wears down your energy. The diagnosis shows that you've been living as if you're always on the edge of an imminent scarcity. This doesn't mean irresponsibility. It means past experiences left deep marks. Now I am entering this field of material concern and beginning to reorganize opportunities. The promise I make is aligned provision, doors that open at the right time, and practical wisdom for secure decisions. I'm working behind the scenes on things you don't see yet, adjusting details that will bring stability. Relief will emerge when you see concrete movements replacing abstract fear. I'm restoring your confidence in provision and breaking cycles of repeated insecurity. Prepare to witness organization where there was tension and security where there was constant doubt. I know you carry regrets that return to your memory as if they were still happening. I've seen you revisit old choices, imagining different paths you could have followed. There is a persistent guilt trying to convince you that certain mistakes defined your destiny. My beloved, this internal narrative does not reflect the truth of your story. The diagnosis is that you've allowed the past to speak louder than the transformation that has already happened. You grew, you matured, you learned, but you still see yourself through the lens of old failures. Now I am entering those memories and beginning to give each episode new meaning. The promise I make is liberation from paralyzing guilt and the restoration of your spiritual self-esteem. I am separating who you were from who you have become. Relief comes when you understand that regret is not a life sentence. I am healing your emotional memory and giving dignity back to your walk. Receive this restoration as proof that your story continues and did not end at your mistake. I know you find it hard to ask for help, even when you deeply need it. I've seen you choose silence so you wouldn't seem dependent or fragile. There is an internal belief that showing need is a sign of weakness. My son, my daughter, this forced self-reliance has isolated you more than it has protected you. The diagnosis reveals that you learned to survive alone because of circumstances that demanded early maturity. But surviving is not the same as living supported and cared for. Now I am entering this resistance and beginning to soften your emotional rigidity. The promise I make is to place trustworthy people around you, capable of sharing your burdens. I am teaching you that support doesn't diminish your strength. It expands your stability. Relief is born when you allow yourself to be sustained instead of sustaining everything. I am restoring your ability to share weights without shame. Prepare to experience relationships where you too can rest. I know there are dreams you've shelved out of prudence, believing their time has passed. I've seen you silently give up on plans that once lit up your eyes. You started to believe that certain opportunities belong only to the younger or the bolder. My beloved, this conclusion was born of exhaustion, not truth. The diagnosis shows that your hope was diminished by accumulated frustrations. But maturity doesn't eliminate a dream, it refines it. Now I am entering this space where you archived your desires, and I'm beginning to reignite your purpose. The promise I make is the reactivation of projects aligned with your current phase. I'm adjusting your dreams to your experience, making them more solid and possible. Relief will come when you realize there are still creative chapters ahead of you. I am restoring enthusiasm without recklessness and courage with wisdom. Receive this renewal as confirmation that there is still fulfillment reserved for you. I know that time has been a source of anguish for you. I've seen you compare your trajectory with others and feel like you've been left behind. There is an internal pressure saying that certain achievements should have happened by now. My son, my daughter, this comparison distorts the perception of your own process. The diagnosis is that you've been measuring your journey with the yardstick of someone else's expectations. Every story has its own rhythm, and yours isn't wrong. It's personalized. Now, I am entering this chronological anxiety and bringing a broader perspective. The promise I make is acceleration where necessary and stability where essential. I am synchronizing events that seem disconnected. Relief begins when you understand that you didn't lose time, you accumulated preparation. I am restoring your peace regarding the calendar of your life. Trust that the time that seemed like an adversary is becoming an ally. I know there is an inner battle between faith and doubt happening inside you. I've seen moments where you believed intensely and others where you questioned silently. This oscillation made you feel guilty, as if you were failing spiritually. My beloved, faith is not the absence of questioning. It is the choice despite it. The diagnosis reveals that you interpreted doubt as a definitive weakness, but even questioning can be part of spiritual maturity. Now, I am entering this internal conflict and bringing emotional stability. The promise I make is a matured faith, less impulsive and more rooted. I'm transforming your doubt into a sincere search and your search into conviction. Relief will come when you realize you weren't rejected for questioning. I'm strengthening your spirituality in a deep and conscious way. Prepare to experience a confidence more solid than any you've had before. I know you feel fear about what hasn't happened yet. I've seen you imagine future scenarios and try to prepare for every negative possibility. This constant anticipation has generated a tension that doesn't always make rational sense. My son, my daughter, living by projecting catastrophes wears out your present energy. The diagnosis shows that past experiences taught you to expect the worst, but not every future repeats the past. Now, I'm entering these anticipatory thoughts and beginning to redefine your expectations. The promise I make is real protection and balanced discernment. I'm turning away invisible dangers and adjusting paths silently. Relief begins when you realize you don't need to fear every curve in the road. I am restoring your ability to live for today without carrying tomorrow. Trust that the future is being carefully prepared by me. I know that despite everything, you desire peace more than any outward success. I've seen you realize that success without serenity does not satisfy the heart. There is a deep longing for balance, for less tense days and quieter nights. My beloved, this desire isn't an escape. It's emotional maturity. The final diagnosis reveals that your soul seeks stability above recognition. You've already understood that true victory includes inner health. Now I step in as a source of constant, not circumstantial peace. The promise I make is a serenity that will remain even in the midst of challenges. I am building within you a foundation that does not easily shake. Relief will become a routine, not just an exception. I'm restoring your internal harmony and aligning every area of your life. Receive this consolation as preparation for a phase where you will walk with firmness, clarity, and real rest. If this message has spoken to your heart, I invite you to be part of our mission to spread faith and hope. Subscribe to the channel now, leave your like, and share this message with those you love. Every gesture of yours can bring comfort and transformation to more lives. I really want to know how this word touched you, so write it in the comments. I will read every single one, and I will be praying for you and your family. Let's light up the world together with the Word of God. See you soon, and may God bless you. Amen.